Module 1, Unit 1, Common Computing Devices. In this unit, our objective is for you to learn how to describe the basics of how a computer processes data, and then to describe the functions and capabilities of types of computing devices such as PCs, servers, mobiles, and home automation. This will also include the Internet of Things. Anything, all the devices that processes information and that falls under the definition of IT. So to get started with, so what is information technology? By this time, guys, you have the idea. You live on this world now, but just to, to have a formal definition, as I agree with CompTIA, information technology or IT is a system that processes information. It process, it store, and transfer information. So when we expand about this information, ito yung in a form of digital data. And these digital data are represented of strings of zeros and ones. Ito yung nakikita ng computer in the hardware level, zeros and ones. When we say information as well, these are any information like words, numbers, pictures, sound, or video. So IT system generally, when it processes data, it involves computers, a network, or a telecommunication itself, telecommunication network. You know your phones, diba? And other programmable electronic device. We will expand that more as we go further with the other unit. Anything, any electronics, any computer device that processes information, that store information and transfer information. That's why in this generation, we already call it as the information age because everything, all the things that is processed or store information and transfer information are everything, all the industries, diba? From school, from the things that we do at home, at work, IT is very crucial now. It's also a vital, it's also a necessary industry. So the common computing devices, when it comes to IT, we start with the computer. And when we say computer, we all know, di ba, na there's a hardware, the hardware, the unit itself, and the peripheral devices. The peripheral devices, these are the things na you connect with the main unit itself or the CPU. And then we have the software. When we say software, there are two things that you need to be aware of. As we all know, ito yung tinatawag na operating systems. Ito yung Windows 7 and the Linux distributions and the network operating system itself. And then we have this what we call applications, or as we all know nowadays, apps. This software component is important. Your computer is nothing without the software and the hardware that runs it. And another thing that we need to be aware of as well is the term we call user interfaces. These are the things like the input devices and the output devices like keyboard, monitor, speakers. These are peripheral devices that sometimes serves as user interfaces to input the data and for the computer to output the data. Those are user interfaces. All right. So the basics of computing and processing is, you know, as we enter information, either it is either a command or a data that we input. So this data, in any form, is converted to simple instructions from the software and then operating system. And these instructions are stored in the memory that is part of the hardware. This is what we call the random access memory. And then, meron din tayong tinatawag na CPU, the Central Processing Unit. Everybody knows that. So you should know this already by now. And CPU is the main component of the hardware that retrieves and process each instruction, either as a command or an input data from the data file from memory, and then and processes it. Then CPU, it also writes back to the memory when it processes it, and then it directs the other components kung anong kailangang function to execute. Like functions, what we call is to display the information, to print, yun ang ginagawa ng CPU. Ini-execute yung mga command na gayon, na ganon. And then, the digital data, di ba? As mentioned earlier, ito yung signal. This is the information that the hardware processes in terms of zeros and ones. This one and zero is in a binary, no, digital signal. Kaya siya binary kasi 1 and 0 lang. They're two digits represented by the computer hardware. It's either on, that's 1, or off, that's 0. So, di ba ang computing, CPUs or any components like RAMs, these are electronic devices. And when they talk, they communicate, they process, they understand only 1 and 0. Ito yung very high speed, very rapid, and very fast when they process information or instructions. Now, sa common computing devices, sa common computer devices, aside from, in addition to hardware and software, di ba? Let's expand more about the input, the output, processing, and storage. When we say input, ito yung, these are the peripheral devices like the mice, the keyboards, scanners, because the information are going into the hardware, going into the computer, I mean. So the software receives this input and then processes it at the hardware level. And then whatever is the instruction, whatever is the data that needs to be retrieved, pinaprocess ng CPU yan. And then within the CPU itself, we have the memory, the CPU, and the software instructions. And then when it's processed, depending on the command, whether to print or to display an image or to come up with a sound, it goes with the output, which is also the peripheral devices. The monitor to display the image and a speaker system to where the sound comes out, diba? And then the storage. It's automatically saves in your hard drive. It's different when we say na kasi before kasi meron mga software na it doesn't save automatically, but nowadays may mga restoration na rin tinatawag. So meron automatic saving, or there's an option na by default they don't save automatically for special applications. And then the units that the components that are used for storaging is the hard drives or optical disc. Optical discs, ito yung tinatawag natin na CDs, DVDs, Blu-rays, those are storage devices. And then, when it has to communicate between computers or between users, either within the same area, the same building, or to another location, that's what we call networks. Information are processed here by transmitting, by sending and receiving, and sending it back to the sender. It's a communication between sender and destination. So personal computers, these are the common devices, as we said, di ba? But just to inform you briefly, personal computers has been in the, since it's been with us since the 1960s and 70s. Ito pa yung mga malalaking CPUs, malaking monitors, and there are even computers or what they call mainframes as huge as a cabinet or twice that. Ganun kalaki, but the processing power, it was already powerful back then, but nowadays it's nothing, just an antique device. But again, these are it started in the 60s and 70s, and then personal computers and technology, as you have already seen, it's evolving. Somehow in the 1980s, they already computers are already developed using microprocessors, and the pioneering industries back then are the IBMs. These are actually, do you know what's the meaning of IBM? Ito yung international business machines. And then the CPU, the pioneering company who actually is, we call it Intel. Meron dati net sa Pilipinas. I don't know if they still have it. And then the pioneering software is for personal computers is Windows OS. And then in the 90s and 21st century, palit na ng palit ang mga hardware, di ba? Hardware are getting smaller. We call laptops. If you have seen an early release of laptops in the 1990s, it's so heavy as well. But that was already cool back then. And then tablets, di ba? Meron tayong tinatawag na ganyan, smartphones, and we have also what we call now is the Internet of Things. Now, we also have this what we call desktop and workstation computers. As we all know, meron na tinatawag na small form factor, tower case, o mini tower case. Ito yung CPU itself. And then these are the peripheral devices, the output devices, and then the input devices. So it's literally in front of you, it's on top of your desktop. So, mga computer ngayon, when we say workstation, they have, what is this? Specifications that are faster. Or you can even easily modify and upgrade. Ito yung mga open systems, even the branded ones. These are the things that, and nowadays can be done by, it doesn't have to be an engineer or a technical person when it comes to replacement of CPU, memory upgrades, or this storage capacity increase, and then you use for storage the DVDs. It's plug and play. And then we have this also what we call the ergonomics. When we say ergonomics, guys, ito yung physical build ng computer itself, from keyboard to mouse, how convenient a mouse will be used, or how comfortable the keyboard is as you type in. And say when you put your fingers on top of the keyboard, it's very convenient because there are medical cases or explanations na in the long run, in the long term, meron tinatawag na carpal tunnel, mga sakit-sakita na it doesn't exist before. But maybe we're not yet aware. But this, the definition of ergonomics is the convenience of the device and the unit itself. Even from your chair, even the elevation, the height ng monitor, no, those are ergonomics. It falls the definition of ergonomics or requirements. And then meron rin tinatawag na all-in-one. Unlike as you may already know, no, separate ang unit ng CPU, separate ang monitor, separate ang speaker, but all in one, all you see is just this one. And nandiyan na rin yung hardware, nandiyan yung speaker, and sometimes it's also touchscreen. PC yun, that's a PC, that's a desktop. And those are expensive, of course, especially the branded ones. And then, meron din tayong tinatawag na servers, which is also a computer. And remember, when we say computer, diba, there's hardware, that's software. These servers are actually powerful devices. Ito yung mga ginagamit sa mga company, sa mga data centers. And you can see, it's either, it come with this unit or mounting, even yung maraming tinatawag na rack unit. Yung spacing dito, ito sa tawag dito sa cabinet, rack unit. So, these are powerful computers. And meron ng tinatawag na redundancy and fault tolerance. On a PC, ang tawag lang natin doon is backups. No? And then sa servers, at the level of servers, meron na tinatawag na redundancy. When we say redundancy, at the event of component failure, hindi may interrupt ang computer, it's still working. Like for example, power redundancy. Dalawa ang power supply. Pag ang isang power supply nasira, hindi mag-shutdown ng computer. So the other power supply will function. Yun ang redundancy. And when we say fault tolerance is like for example, merong power interruption. So may mga power management. We don't want na you need to be sure na aside from having two power supplies, meron naman na isa lang, and well, isa lang available while the other one is still being in the process of replacement. Pero tinatawag ng mga UPS or kaya UPS are in times of power outage, power interruption, or even an outage sa power system, di ba yung merong tinatawag na surge currents. So fault tolerance, or even the hardware itself, meron din fault tolerance na tinatawag dyan. And then, rack mounted, usually, when we say servers. Ito yung minamount sa cabinet. If you have been into data centers, meron mga tinatawag na cabinet na where are these are being mounted. So, we can tell a lot when it comes to servers. But narrowing down our discussion, we have these laptops as well. This is also a computer. It has a component of course, the hardware and software. But to compare the physicality or the descriptions at yung mga self-contained units, it's like all-in-one as well. Kasi nandiyan na yung screen, the display, the keyboard, and aside from a mouse, meron ng touchpad na ito yung parang mouse touchpad. You know this. You had this. When you scroll or touch, I mean, your fingers, you can, ganun din yung mouse. And then may mga I/O ports. Yung mga bagong input and output dito. When we say I/O pala, it means input and output. Lahat yun ports pa rin. So either at the side of the chassis, on both sides, on the other side as well, or at the back. You're already aware by now ano yung mga I/O ports na yun. Ito yung mga tinatawag na USB, di ba? Mga HDMI. And then the size and weight has improved as well. And if you remember, I mentioned earlier, yung mga early generation of laptops that we are already so proud and so cool about it, but it's so heavy. Ito, ang gaan na talaga that you can comfortably work with your computer on top of your lap. Kaya nga laptops eh. No? And then, and display type, input devices, power source is very unique now. Very, ang tawag dito, self-contained, no? And scalable. And then, meron na rin mga networking. Before, may mga laptop na it doesn't have a built-in networking device. Ito yung mga ports sa likod to connect in the network. Ito yung RJ45 or using UTP cables. Those are other stores. But it has networking capabilities, in other words. Now, we need to be aware as well when it comes to vendors. Vendors, ito yung mga manufacturers. And we call it OEMs, Original Equipment Manufacturers. Marami na ngayon. Marami na mga gumagawa niyan. But the the big players are Dell, Hewlett Packard, Compaq, before separate pa yan, and then Lenovo, which is actually IBM. But there is still IBM nowadays, and from Asia, like the Acer, Huawei. There's so many of them, and there are other vendors that is not on the list that we are not aware. Probably even NAC that started with telephones na meron na rin computers. And then yung laptops and hybrids, yan. Samsung, especially Sony, it didn't start with computers, as you all know, no? When we say Sony, ang alam natin dito, these are the components, the sound system or the TV itself. And then Apple, it's been dominant, but before, in the early back in the 80s, 90s, these are very, very expensive vendor. It's only the companies who can afford this, and they are originally competing with IBM. And then meron na rin Chromebooks. These are OEMs as well. Na, as we all know, when we say, maybe you haven't aware yet, Chromebooks, this is owned by Google. And Google started, as we all know, as a browser. Now, this is a big IT company. And they have their own laptops na rin. And servers. When it comes to servers, of course, may OEMs din dyan. Ito nga yung sinasabi natin, the big players. The Dell, HP, and Lenovo. Compaq as well. Now, common computing devices, the smartphones and tablets that we all have. Sino bang walang, excuse me, tablet and smartphones nowadays, di ba? These are, for your information that you may already know, are computers as well. It started as a personal digital assistants, PDAs. The only PDA I know what it means for personal data assistants, no? And it started as a tablet and then separate pa yung phone. Now, it's all in one. Smartphones and tablets. Guys, we know it's a touchscreen. May mga input devices din yan, di ba? May mga input devices, may output devices. It still falls to the characteristics of common computers or common computing devices. And sino ba may ano ba pinakmalaking ano ngayon? Display. It comes with different sizes na very convenient for us. You want it to be very small or very big. It's up to you. It's your choice now. Marami ng variations yan. And then, sino ba mga popular dyan? And as you all know, oh, big time, Apple or Samsung. That's a good thing. There's an Asian brand, di ba? And then Apple actually dominated nila yan. And then, maraming role players din yan. Even who's this, Microsoft. And then, back in the day, Nokia was so popular. Everybody uses Nokia. Now, everybody's using either Apple or Samsung. And then, meron pa ako narinig na Vivo. What are those, di ba? Also popular that I'm not aware. Not everyone is aware. But yet again, when we say smartphones and tablets, these are also computers. And this time, the Internet of Things, IoT. When we say Internet of Things, all the devices that you can find starting from home, all of those are electronic devices. All of those have the characteristic of computers with hardware and software and a user interface. From cameras, home appliances, there are, especially the refrigerator nowadays, meron ng display. It connects also the internet. And sometimes it's even smarter than automatic refrigerator, but to order. Sometimes it connects us sa internet to order the supplies. Meron ng ganon. And then, so all of these are connected to the network. All of these have the components of hardware and software. Home automation. That's the only simple definition or explanation for Internet of Things. It's literal. All the things are connected or has the capability to be hooked up in the internet. And then, wow, even the cars. Diba, the cars nowadays, may mga built-in, ano na yan, tawag dito, mga satellite navigation, may mga built-in internet pa nga, o kaya interfaces that connects with your phone. And then even modern cars, di ba, yung mga ginagawa ng Tesla o kaya yung mga without drivers. Drones, as we all know, these are, still false. Fall on the characteristic of hardware, software, internet or connectivity. And then even the hospitals, bankings, not only hospitals and bankings, but airports. There are all devices there are falls on the let's use it from nowadays starting this point, IoT. These are IoT devices or intelligent devices. Mga x-rays, di ba? Oh, ano pa ba mga medical devices that can be used, mga scanners, no? MRIs, those are automated because of computer components, and that can be as well accessed remotely or can be connected to the network. Wow. Sino ba ang walang gaming console nowadays? Even back in the day before, I didn't realize na when I was a student, kung naalala niyo pa yung mga early days ng mga gaming console, they are also computers. I mean, inside of it, when you open it, it's an electronic board, and then it comes also has the components of the computer. Mayroong hard drive, may mga optical drive. It's the same characteristic, the same definitions, but it is built for a sole purpose of gaming. May browsing na nga rin eh, di ba? Of course, this is custom built kung tawagin, meant for gaming only. Sino ba mga popular vendors dyan? Of course, when we say gaming console nowadays, Sony, and then Microsoft. But before, it was Nintendo. Nintendo. Probably you have heard it from your parents. Meron na rin gumagawa niyan. It was so expensive back then, and it was really cool if you have one. And then, may mga handheld consoles. Nintendo is more popular one, and then Sony Vita. They have this PlayStation as well in PSP, PlayStation Portable. Uh, but just to simply say, these are also computers in general. These are also common computing devices that you can find anywhere and that can be used by anyone anymore nowadays. And then, so in this unit, you should be able to learn, you're already aware how to describe the basics of how a computer processes data. And then we also discuss all the kinds of computing devices, and so those devices that falls under the definition of IT then, no? And computing because of the components of the software, the hardware, the user interface, and connectivity, the basic functions and capabilities, the components. Actually, we covered that. So in this unit, these are the things that we covered, and I hope this has been informative to you. See you on the next unit. Thank you.